Hi, this is the next part of my Mini NES guide series. In this video I'll show you how to assemble the basic case. It'll be quite brief today, with full step-by-step pictures and instructions coming a bit later. There's a link down in the description to my Thingiverse where you can download and print all the case pieces for yourself. Let's get started. These are the two main case pieces. They print flat and quite easily, but there are some areas that need supporting just under here. Now in my model I included some optional supports. If you use them, the top shell will come off the print bed like this. You can see here these pieces are just supporting that overhang. Now they're meant to break off nice and easily, but you can use your own slicer support instead, but I made these this way just so it gives you a nice flat surface for later on. Now the first thing you want to do is install the front switches. These are included in the electronics kit, but I can't show you that today because I haven't had the samples back yet. If you were to build them yourself though, you would take this piece. This is the piece to mount the switches, and the switches here, and they need to be glued in first, so they pop in, but you'd glue them just to fix them in place, and then just offer it up to the case, find the right place, and make sure that the switches move nice and freely, and then you'd glue that in place. Before you mount the Raspberry Pi into the case, you would attach the USB extension cord. Now again, I don't have one of those to show you, but basically it would plug into here and would be wired up here. This USB would just fit into the slot there, and then the Raspberry Pi itself, you line up the ports at the back first and should just sort of click into place there. Now it's held down by 4 screws, one in each corner, so I'll quickly do that now. There you go, kind of fiddly, but it works okay. You notice there I didn't put the screw in that corner. That's because at the moment there are 2 cutouts for micro USB, and that's because the Raspberry Pi doesn't have a power switch. As soon as you plug power into it, it switches on, and that's no good. For this project I want to be able to control the power using the buttons on the front, so I have to intercept the power somehow, and the way I'm doing that is, if you buy a kit from me, then it comes with this micro USB port, and that will just fit in the back there, and that screws down, and then you would plug your micro USB power supply into the top port, and that will be controlled by the electronics in the kit. There is a little cover that I've included in the files that you can just glue over the port that you're not going to be using, or you could leave them both open. It doesn't matter really too much. The top shell has some areas there where the supports were need to be covered by trim. Can you get the focus there? There we are. So it comes with a piece like that, and that just glues in there, and that covers up the messy parts where the supports were broken away. The lid, this is hinged with a couple of pieces of filament that you just heat up and kind of stretch into a cone that goes in there, and you can see the 2 holes either side. You can get to it from the bottom. I'm going to push the little piece through, and then there you go. Take our glue, some super glue here, then the black trim pieces, the longer part goes on the front, cartridge tray also has a few parts. The main tray there, you see the little supports here that just break off, and this bar fits there, and in the real NES it's metal. So what I like to do is take some aluminium tape, so this kind of stuff, and if you wrap a little bit around there you can make it look a little bit like metal. I'll just show you. There you go, little metallic bar. And again that glues in there, and then the little peg piece just fixes in the bottom there. Now it's quite stiff, so sometimes you want to use pliers just to pinch the edges. There you go. So this is one that I've already made, or the glue's already dried. Now it just pops into the top shell. You see those holes there? Line up the pegs. Now you've got to force it in a little bit, but it shouldn't be too difficult. There you go. Now the electronics would sit underneath the cartridge slot. I don't have a final version to show you, just this handmade mock-up, and that would sit in the corner and just mount with some double-sided tape, and from there you could plug it into the rest of the system. So at this point, if you are using a fan that you'd install it, there's a groove there in the case and a little indent there, and that's made to accept the fan mount. Before installing, you'd put a little bit of glue there, and then it should just click into place. And that's just going to blow some cold air into the case and keep the processor nice and cool. Now before we fit the two halves together, we need to put the latch in, and that goes into that little cup. The latches look like this. You see there's two little arms there, we need to cut those off, and we'll have something like that. And then that just drops into the cup, and if you push it down it will click into place. Now the case clips together now. You just need to line up one of the corners. I always start with the back corner, and then if you give it a bit of a squeeze, make sure it's all clicked in. That's it, that's the final case. I use different materials when printing the new case as compared to the old one. The old one, which you'll have seen in my first video, this uses Faberdashery PLA, Architect's Stone for the top half and Storm Grey for the bottom half. The black pieces are just standard black. This one I printed using 3D Prima, light grey PLA for the top half and grey ABS for the bottom half. They're pretty similar in shades. Out of the two, I'd say I probably prefer the 3D Prima filament. For me, it's more convenient because it's available on spools and you don't have to sort of worry about using the loose filament like you do with the Faberdashery stuff. However, if you're only going to print one case, then it's quite nice that Faberdashery sells by the meter, and you can buy I think 10 meters at a time, something like that. If you are printing the case, then I'd budget about 50 grams for each colour, so 50 grams of the Architect Stone and 50 grams of the Storm Grey, and that should be plenty to print all the pieces. So that's all for this brief assembly video. I will make a more detailed guide with step-by-step pictures a little bit later on, and as soon as I get my hands on the electronics kits, I'll make another update video showing the final installation of all the hardware. Until then, if you do want to buy an electronics kit, then they're available on my website. I'll put a link down in the description. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you soon.